Speaking of intelligence, we all know that Morty is 3 seasons behind Rick.
What are you trying to say about Morty? That he's stupid or something?
Oh, don't high-road us, Dad. You know fully well that Morty is the last child that needs to be missing classes.
I don't know what you mean by that. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Oh, for crying out, he's got some kind of disability or something. Is that what you want us to say?
But what if I tell you that there are times when Morty proved that he can be as smart as Rick? These are the times Morty outsmarted Rick. But Morty proves he is smart by solving drunk Rick's death puzzles. The episode begins with Rick and Morty joining the Vindicators, a team of superheroes who have just defeated the galaxy's greatest villain without Rick's help. Rick is clearly jealous that Morty admires the Vindicators more than him, so after getting extremely drunk, he secretly creates a series of elaborate death traps for the entire team.
Check, 1, 2. Okay, is it recording? Good. Hello, Vindicators! Welcome to your reckoning, baby! Well, it's official. I had too much to drink last night.
The next morning, sober Rick wakes up with absolutely no memory of what his drunken self built. Suddenly, everyone, including Rick, is trapped inside a deadly game designed by the smartest man in the universe, except even its creator has no idea how to beat it. The situation quickly spirals out of control. One by one, the Vindicators fall victim to Rick's twisted puzzles, while everyone desperately looks to Rick for answers.
Not this psycho trailer park shit.
Vance, stay calm.
Oh, so you're the leader now because we gave you a jacket? You're the learning disabled kid we do photo ops with.
Okay, ouch, but...
Okay, this is triggering me. I need space. I need space from this!
The problem is that sober Rick is just as confused as everyone else. His intelligence becomes almost useless because he can't remember the logic behind his own traps. While the superheroes argue, panic, and rely on brute force, nobody takes the time to actually study the clues. Rick's ego also gets in the way. Rather than admitting he doesn't know what to do, he continues acting like he's in control, even as the situation becomes more dangerous. Meanwhile, Morty does something surprisingly simple. He pays attention. Instead of trying to overpower the puzzles, he carefully listens to drunk Rick's recorded messages, studies the clues left behind, and works through each challenge logically. While everyone else assumes the traps are impossible, Morty realizes they all have solutions if someone is willing to think instead of panic. He successfully figures out multiple puzzles on his own, helping everyone move forward despite having no advanced technology or scientific genius. Morty succeeds because he approaches the problem with patience and observation rather than arrogance. Ironically, the only person capable of understanding drunk Rick's clues is the person Rick constantly dismisses as unintelligent. By the end of the adventure, Morty proves that intelligence isn't always about having the highest IQ or inventing incredible technology. Rick created the puzzles, but Morty was the one who could actually solve them. While the Vindicators relied on their powers and Rick relied on his reputation, Morty relied on careful thinking. His calm approach allows him to navigate challenges that leave everyone else completely lost. This episode highlights one of Morty's greatest strengths throughout the series. He doesn't let his ego get in the way of learning. Rick often assumes he's already the smartest person in the room, causing him to overlook obvious details. Morty, on the other hand, stays curious, listens carefully, and notices patterns that others ignore. Sometimes, being willing to learn is more valuable than believing you already know everything. And in this episode, that difference is exactly what proves Rick wrong. Next, we see Morty outsmarts Nick in combat. It all began when Morty was secretly going on solo adventure without Rick's consent. After the adventure, Morty noticed that Rick had marked the portal fluid. He then mixes the leftover fluid with Mountain Dew. Accidentally, Morty spilt a portal fluid on his palm.
Oh! Phew. What the?
Hey, what the hell?
Ah! Jesus!
You got some of that green stuff on you too, huh?
This is bad. This is really really bad!
Hey, how do you think I feel? I had the ultimate stash hole, and now I got a kid in my thigh.
He comes face to face with a man named Nick, who had a portal built directly into his thigh. It turned out that Nick wanted to steal Rick's portal gun and accidentally spilt the fluid on his thigh. Nick and Morty hang out since Rick was giving too much attention to his two crows than Morty.
From you. Come on, anything but Morty. Let's go. Come on, baby. No whammies. Stop. Okay, that's it. 2 crows. You're fired.
You know what? Eat shit. You're just trying to make me feel worthless.
I never said you're worthless. In fact, I've given you a very clear metric of your worth. 2 crows.
Later in the episode, Morty was not comfortable with Nick's ideas. Nick wanted a portal gun to go on an adventure. He wanted to kill for it, but Morty didn't agree with him, so they started fighting. It's the kind of fight Rick would normally solve with an overpowered gadget or some last-second invention. During the fight, Morty did something clever. He amputated his portal palm and sank it in Nick's thigh. The move causes the portals to work against their owner, turning his own technology into the weapon that ultimately kills him. It's a brutal but incredibly clever solution.
I already got a partner, and there's no room for promotions.
What the fuck did you just do?
Cut you out of my life.
Morty doesn't overpower his opponent, he outthinks him. He recognizes a weakness that the Nick never considered and uses it at exactly the right moment. This moment highlights how much Morty has grown since the beginning of the series. Early season Morty would have frozen in fear or waited for Rick to save him. This version of Morty stays calm under pressure, analyzes the situation, and turns his enemy's greatest advantage into his biggest weakness. Rick may have taught Morty how dangerous the universe can be, but in moments like this, Morty proves he's learned enough to survive it on his own. Next up, Morty leads the Tree People. It all started when Rick's car failed to start due to a battery malfunction. It turned out that Rick created a microverse of aliens to power his car battery. Rick and Morty traveled to the microverse, and he found out that the microverse has stopped working to power up his car battery. With the help of a scientist called Zine Zanflorp, Zine Zanflorp explains to Rick that he has modified electricity generation by creating another microverse. This got Rick really mad and jealous. They started fighting like little kids.
Much obliged! What the hell is happening?
This is healthy. Trust me.
You're my battery, motherfucker! That's all you are! I made you! Your microverse sucks! And your miniverse is the size of a fucking lobster tank!
Morty, however, can't ignore what he sees. Instead, he walked away from their egos to live with the mutants known as the Tree. It was only a couple of months, but Morty was able to learn their culture and become their leader. Instead of relying on advanced technology or Rick's inventions, Morty wins people over with determination and hope. He speaks to the mutants as equals, convincing them that they've spent too long believing they're powerless. Slowly, they begin standing together instead of living in fear. What starts as a handful of frightened individuals grows into a full-scale rebellion. Morty helps organize the resistance, inspires them to challenge their rulers, and gives them the confidence to fight for their own freedom. Unlike Rick, who usually solves problems by overpowering his enemies, Morty succeeds by empowering other people to solve their own problems. His greatest weapon isn't intelligence or technology, it's the ability to inspire others. The episode highlights one of the biggest differences between Rick and Morty. Rick believes the smartest person should solve every problem alone. Morty understands that real change happens when ordinary people believe they can make a difference together. Time and time again, Morty proves that leadership isn't about having the most powerful gadgets, it's about giving others a reason to believe in themselves. And that's a kind of intelligence Rick often fails to recognize. But wait and see how Morty saved Rick from evil Rick. Early in the series, Rick is framed for murdering dozens of alternate versions of himself, forcing him and Morty to flee across the multiverse while the Council of Ricks hunts them down. Eventually, they're captured by the mysterious evil Rick, who has been controlling another Rick with advanced technology while kidnapping countless Mortys to hide his brainwaves. Inside Evil Rick's headquarters, Morty discovers dozens of imprisoned Mortys who have spent who knows how long believing they're powerless. To Rick, escaping is simply another problem to solve. To Morty, leaving those innocent Mortys behind isn't an option. It becomes even more dangerous when Rick is captured and completely helpless. For once, the smartest man in the universe can't think his way out of the situation. Evil Rick has anticipated almost every move, leaving Rick tied up while the other Mortys remain trapped. Most of the captive Mortys have accepted their fate, convinced they're nothing more than disposable sidekicks whose only purpose is protecting Rick's. Rick Rick has spent years treating Mortys as replaceable, and now that belief has spread throughout the multiverse. Morty realizes that if nobody stands up, they'll all remain prisoners forever. Instead of waiting for Rick to rescue everyone, Morty takes charge himself. He rallies the captive Mortys, convincing them that they're stronger together than they realize. Rather than acting out of fear, Morty inspires them to fight back against their captors. The imprisoned Mortys begin working together, overwhelming evil Rick's forces and creating the distraction Rick needs to escape. Morty's leadership completely changes the outcome of the battle. He doesn't defeat evil Rick with superior technology or impossible inventions. He wins because he gives hope to people who had forgotten they had any. The rebellion only succeeds because Morty convinces everyone to believe in themselves instead of waiting for a Rick to save them. By the end of the episode, Rick is alive because Morty refused to abandon the other captives. It's a rare moment where the student saves the teacher. Rick may have defeated countless enemies throughout his life, but this time he survives because Morty becomes the leader the situation desperately needed. Even more importantly, Morty proves that not all Mortys are weak or disposable. Given the chance, they can be just as brave, resourceful, and determined as any Rick. The episode perfectly demonstrates a lesson Rick never seems to learn. Intelligence alone doesn't inspire loyalty. Rick often commands respect because people fear him. Morty earns loyalty because people trust him. While Rick sees Mortys as sidekicks, Morty sees them as equals worth fighting for. That compassion turns a group of frightened prisoners into a rebellion capable of defeating one of the smartest villains in the multiverse, proving once again that Rick's biggest mistake is constantly underestimating his own grandson. But what if the next episode shows you that Rick isn't as smart as you think? Morty's Mind Blowers is filled with memories Rick erased because he didn't want Morty remembering all the embarrassing, traumatic, or inconvenient moments from their adventures. As Rick and Morty dig through the shelves of bottled memories, one clip stands out for a very different reason. It's not about aliens, monsters, or interdimensional disasters. It's simply Rick and Morty sitting across from each other playing a game of chess. On the surface, it seems like an ordinary grandfather-grandson activity. But considering Rick is the self-proclaimed smartest man in the universe, the outcome should be completely predictable. He treats Morty like someone who could never possibly challenge him in a battle of strategy. To Rick, losing to Morty isn't just embarrassing, it completely shatters the image he has of himself. Chess is a game built entirely on planning, logic, and thinking several moves ahead, the exact skills Rick prides himself on. If Morty can beat Rick here, then maybe Rick isn't as intellectually untouchable as he believes. But against all expectations, Morty checkmates Rick. It's one of the few times in the entire series where Rick is defeated purely through strategy. What's even more telling is Rick's reaction. Instead of accepting the loss or congratulating Morty, he erases the entire memory from Morty's mind. Rather than admit his grandson outplayed him, Rick literally rewrites history so nobody will ever know it happened. In a way, Rick's decision to erase the memory is an even bigger admission than the loss itself. Deep down, he knows Morty earned the victory. This moment perfectly captures the relationship between Rick and Morty throughout the series. Rick's intelligence is undeniable, but his arrogance often blinds him. Morty, on the other hand, approaches problems with patience, curiosity, and an open mind. Those qualities allow him to surprise even the smartest man in the universe. The fact that Rick felt the need to erase the memory says everything. Morty didn't just win a game of chess, he proved that Rick could be beaten, and Rick couldn't live with that reality. But the next episode tells us that Morty doesn't really need to rely on Rick for anything. After surviving one disaster too many, Rick and Morty decide to visit an alien spa that promises to remove all of their psychological toxins. It sounds like the perfect reset. The machine literally extracts everything holding them back: fear, anxiety, insecurity, self-doubt, and other negative traits, creating separate, toxic versions of both Rick and Morty. Rick expects the treatment to make both of them instantly better, convinced that getting rid of emotional baggage is the secret to becoming the best version of yourself. As usual, Rick assumes science has found the perfect solution to a complicated human problem. At first, everything seems to go according to plan. Rick enjoys life without the emotional weight he normally carries, while Morty suddenly transforms into a calm, confident, and incredibly disciplined teenager. But the longer the episode continues, the clearer it becomes that the treatment affects them very differently. Purified Morty starts excelling at school, speaks confidently, impresses Jessica, makes smarter decisions, and generally becomes the kind of person he always wanted to be. Meanwhile, Rick's purified self becomes increasingly arrogant and reckless, believing he's so superior that the rules no longer apply to him. Ironically, the person Rick has always considered weak flourishes without his insecurities, while Rick's own ego grows completely out of control. Morty's greatest moment isn't a single clever move, it's the life he builds once his self-doubt disappears. Instead of relying on Rick or stumbling through situations, he becomes focused, disciplined, and surprisingly charismatic. He doesn't invent impossible technology or outsmart an alien civilization. He simply proves that he already had the intelligence and potential to succeed. The only thing holding him back was the lack of confidence Rick had spent years reinforcing. While Rick believes greatness comes from being the smartest person in the room, Morty demonstrates that emotional stability and self-belief can be just as powerful. For the first time, Morty isn't living in Rick's shadow, he's thriving on his own. But when both toxic versions escape and chaos erupts, Rick eventually realizes that completely removing your flaws doesn't make you complete, it makes you incomplete. To return to normal, both Rick and Morty have to reunite with the parts of themselves they rejected. Even so, the episode leaves behind an important realization. Beneath all of Morty's anxiety is someone remarkably capable. Once his fear is removed, he becomes more disciplined, more successful, and arguably more emotionally balanced than Rick himself. The episode's biggest theme is that true intelligence isn't just measured by IQ. Rick may be the greatest scientific mind in the universe, but he's constantly sabotaged by his own ego. Morty, on the other hand, proves that confidence, emotional maturity, and discipline can accomplish things that raw genius alone cannot. Rick has always treated Morty like the weak link in their partnership, but this episode suggests something much more surprising. If Morty ever fully believes in himself, he might not just catch up to Rick, he could become a better version of him.